What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another amazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was exiled after awakening a king's power? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Sasuke. Naruto. Sasuke. The two teammates, friends, rivals clashed their attacks, Chidori and Rasengan, against one another. However, the Uchiha was done being left behind and moved his attack slightly, making his Chidori impale the knuckle-headed ninja through the heart. The Uzumaki would look down in complete shock as his Rasengan started to disperse and his vision became blurry as he started to cough up blood. Naruto. I thought we were friends. The Uchiha would throw the seemingly lifeless body of the Uzumaki on the ground and panted as he felt his curse mark fade away. Sasuke. The village was holding me back, you know this already, Dobi. Being here is nothing but a waste of time. I need to kill my brother and avenge my clan, and to do that, I need more power. Sasuke would turn around and start to walk away but stopped when he felt the ground shake subtly, causing him to glance behind him and see a bright blue pillar of light strike down on the fallen Uzumaki. Scene change. Naruto's mindscape. The nine-tailed demon fox. Amaya saw the events of the battle up close and was disappointed in the Uzumaki's defeat, but was satisfied as she could finally be released from this seal and return to being away from humanity. However, the fox realized that the seal was breaking or cracking in the slightest and saw a small blue flame ignite in the darkness ahead of her, making her stand on edge. Amaya's inner thoughts. What the hell? What's happening? Aren't I supposed to be released from this cage? Wait, what's that blue flame? Raise them. Silver emblems, ashen meadows, circular path buried in light. Eye of agate, tongue of gold, skull cup, coffin of Agnias. The object we raise is your heart. The man's hands would glow a bright, royal blue and Amaya could feel an immense amount of power radiate off of him that even made her feel inferior to him. Oswalin. Scene change. Back outside. Naruto's body would erupt in a massive blue pillar of light that completely engulfed him, shocking Sasuke as he could feel an immense weight crush down on him just being near this amount of power. Sasuke's inner thoughts. What the hell, what is this? Power. The light would die down, revealing a floating Naruto that was surrounded by a bright blue aura. The blonde-haired ninja would open his eyes, which were now a reddish-brown instead of their normal blue, and look down on the Uchiha as if he were a bug on the road before floating down to the ground. Sasuke. What the hell, Dobi? What is this? Where did you get this arg? Immediately, Naruto appeared in front of Sasuke and drived a Rasengan into his chest, sending him into a wall and knocking the Uchiha out instantly. Naruto. That was for nearly killing me, damn dirty Uchiha. However, before Naruto could do anything else, he felt his body and mind become heavy and he fell to the ground and passed out. Then, a few minutes go by and Kakashi Hatake, leader of Team 7, would discover the bloodied and broken body of Sasuke near a wall and a passed-out Naruto on the ground, causing him to sigh and pick them both up and take them back to the leaf. Time skip. 1 week later. Naruto would wake up with a pained groan as he felt the sun rays shine on his face, causing him to sit up and close the blinds before stretching and yawning loudly with a loud sigh. Then, the Uzumaki would take in his surroundings and realize he was in a hospital. Naruto. Wait, this is Konoha's public hospital. Does that mean Before the knuckle-headed ninja could finish his sentence, the door would open and Sakura Haruno, his other teammate, would walk into the room. Her head was down and her body was twitching slightly in seething rage. Naruto. Oh hey Sakura-chan. I told you I would bring Sasuke back. Slap. Naruto felt a burning sensation on the right side of his cheek, causing him to reach up and rub his face with a shocked look as he was slapped harshly by Sakura, his crush. Naruto. Sakura-chan, why did you? Sakura. Shut up. Naruto coiled back on his bed as he saw the fiery rage in his teammate's eyes. Sakura. I told you to bring Sasuke-kun back, not place him in a life-threatening coma. Naruto was shocked again, but couldn't process what he just said as Sakura spoke up again. Sakura. My mom was right, you're a demon. I hope you die alone in a pit of fire, you damn demon. Without a second glance, Sakura would turn around and stomp out of the room, slamming the door shut on the way out. Naruto felt his heart ache badly, as if he got a sharp knife through his heart. He never felt this heartbroken before for a long time, but things were only about to get worse for the Uzumaki as the door would open again and Tsunade, his grandmother figure and the fifth Hokage, would enter the room and stand next to his bed, looking down on her son figure with a sorrow-filled look. Tsunade. Naruto, I have some bad news for you. Naruto. What is it, Granny? Tsunade. After your recent battle with Sasuke Uchiha that ended in him being comatose, the council, with approval from the Fire Daimyo, have decided to have you exiled. A long, deafening silence filled the entire room until Naruto. What do you mean exiled? Tsunade only sighed, expecting this reaction out of the blonde. Tsunade. I know, it's stupid, but this was the only thing I could do to keep you alive. The council originally planned to execute you, but I reduced it to an exile. However, unlike banishment, all of your ties towards the Leaf will be severed completely, meaning, you aren't allowed to go to any Leaf-owned territories, Leaf-established allies, or have any friends and/or family from the Leaf interact with you whatsoever. If you do any of those things, you'll be executed on the spot without any hesitation. All Naruto felt was emptiness at this moment. Never in the blonde's life did he ever think this outcome would ever come into reality. However, reality showed him how cruel it could be and he understood every last bit of it. Naruto. How long do I have till I'm required to leave? Tsunade. 3 days, however, you can leave early if you want. Naruto would nod silently and Tsunade would stand up and walk out of the room, closing the door behind her softly. Then, a loud crash could be heard as Naruto got up and threw a chair against the wall in a fit of built-up rage before slumping to the ground and bursting into tears. Time skip. 3 days later. Naruto was at the front of Konoha's gate, a backpack was on his back and his headband was in his hand. All of his friends and precious people were at the gate, ready to send him off. Naruto. Alright everyone, I guess this is where we separate, huh? Shikamaru. Yeah, unfortunately. Man, all of this is such a drag, bringing back that Uchiha was just a waste of time. Shino. I hope you find something else to do out there and that you stay safe. Kiba. Don't worry Naruto, I'll make sure that Uchiha will pay for getting you exiled. Akumaru. Barks in agreement. Rock Lee. Yash. Don't worry Naruto-san, I'll be sure my springtimes of youth never fail and to honor you in your failed shinobi career. Neji. Good luck staying in one piece out there and thank you for everything. 10-10. Be safe and stay strong. The only one that didn't say anything was Hinata. However, instead of saying anything, the Hyuga princess walked up and kissed the blonde passionately on the lips before breaking away and slowly started to shed tears. Hinata. I want to tell you this before you go, Naruto-kun. I've always and will continue to love you no matter what people say. You've changed many things for me and my family, so, I want you to know that you'll always hold a special place in my heart and that I will never hate you no matter how many enemies I gain for loving you. Naruto genuinely smiled brightly and hugged Hinata tightly while shedding tears of his own. Naruto. Thank you Hinata-chan. I apologize for not seeing or accepting your love and compassion earlier. Thank you for everything you've done for me, big or small, I'll never forget them. Naruto would tie his headband around Hinata's neck and kiss her on the lips, before hugging her one more time and parting away. Naruto. Thank you to all of those who truly cared for me. I will never forget you nor will I ever stop loving you all. Just remember that Naruto Uzumaki will always live on and always gets the last laugh. And with that, the knuckle-headed ninja ran off, waving behind himself and disappearing behind the large trees. After reaching the Valley of the End, Naruto would stop running and place his hand on the ground, causing a black, misty substance to emerge from his hand and envelop him, causing him to disappear and reappear in front of a throne, which he went and sat on. Naruto. It's about time for a king to rise again, Hashwolf? A tall man with long blonde hair and green eyes wearing an all-white cloak with a sword attached to his side would walk up and kneel next to Naruto. Jugram. I agree, Your Majesty. Naruto would wave him off and smirk slightly. Naruto. I may be the reincarnation of your previous leader, but I'm still Naruto Uzumaki, so stand up. Once I learn how to control my new powers, I'm gonna change some things around here. Jugram was surprised to hear this, but nodded in agreement and stood up. Jugram. Very well. When shall we begin your training, Naruto-sama? Naruto would flash Jugram his trademark grin and stand up off the throne. Naruto. How about now? Time skip. 3 years later, current location, Wandenreich base Silburn. An older Naruto was sitting on his throne, which was an all-black chair with large Uzumaki swirls embedded on the front of it and a large Wandenreich symbol imprinted on the back of it, and was absorbing fragments of his soul he gave to some people when the door to his room opened up and Jugram walked into the room. Jugram. Morning Naruto-sama, are you ready to give your announcement today? Naruto would open his eyes and sigh slightly before standing up. Naruto. Yawns loudly and smacks lips. Yeah, I'm ready. Jugram would smirk slightly and lead Naruto to another room where all of the Sternritters and Schutzstaffel were hanging out. Once everyone sensed their king's presence in the room, they all stopped what they were doing and bowed before him. Everyone, Naruto and Jugram, morning your majesty. Naruto. Hello everyone. I hope everyone is ready for today, A man with a pink mohawk and green eyes would look up at Naruto with a confused look. Baz B. Wait, what's happening today, Naruto? Quilge. How pitiful of you, Baz B. How could you forget your majesty's day of returning to his world? Before things could escalate, Naruto would flare his spiritual pressure, making everyone stiffen up and close their mouths. Naruto. No fighting or arguing in my presence, especially after I just woke up. Now, allow me to remind everyone that today is the day that we will go to my world and make our existence be known to the shinobi world, and eventually, Soul Society. A slim man with narrow pale, blue eyes, short black hair, and a vertical scar on the left side of his mouth would raise his hand to speak, which Naruto allowed. Naruto. Yes, Kang-do? Kang-do. What will we exactly do once we establish our empire in the human world? Naruto. Simple. We'll build a powerful nation and try to establish world peace, and anyone who dares to interrupt that peace will die. Kang-do would nod his head and place his hand down. Naruto. However, before we get settled and move out, I have to make some promotions. Everyone, including Jugram, was shocked at Naruto's statement. Jugram. What do you mean by promotions, your majesty? Naruto. Well, if you all remember correctly, Gerard and Pernida are no longer a part of the army due to me absorbing them. Everyone would reflect on that moment, which truly showed how different Yhwach was from Naruto. Flashback. 1 year ago. After learning the basics of Quincy arts and history, Naruto was led by Haschwalth to the room where all of the Sternritters were so he could be introduced to them. Naruto. I wonder how all the Sternritters are. Mind giving me a small description about them? Jugram. All I'll say is that they are diverse and chaotic. The two would enter the room and, just as Jugram described it, everyone in the room was either chatting with another through indiscriminate yelling, screaming or fighting one another. Naruto would look at Jugram with a questioning look, causing the older blonde to sigh. Jugram. I know, it's pretty bad. Naruto would chuckle and flare his power, causing everyone in the room to stop what they were doing and look at the two blondes with mixed emotions before realizing that the slightly shorter blonde was their new king, making them all take a knee. Everyone, Naruto and Jugram, your majesty. It's an honor to see you back in the flesh. Naruto. It's nice to meet all of you as well, my Sternritters. However, while I do carry the power and spiritual essence of Yhwach, I am not him. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I am the new Quincy king of the Wandenreich. Silence fell in the room as everyone was surprised to hear that their king was not only showing them a form of equal respect instead of overbearing superiority, but that he only carried the power of Yhwach and not his mindset. However, a bellowing laughter could be heard echoing throughout the entire room, causing everyone to turn around and see a tall, muscular man wearing a Viking-based outfit with a red cape walk up to Naruto and look down on him with a mocking grin. This was Gerard Valkyrie, member of Yhwach's Royal Guard and Sternritter, the Miracle. Gerard. Seriously? Are you really the Quincy King's reincarnation? You can't be. I don't sense the overwhelming power and ruthlessness from him coming anywhere out of you. Jugram narrowed his eyes and was gonna draw his sword but was stopped by Naruto, who raised a hand and signaled him to stand down before looking up at Gerard with a foxy grin. Naruto. So, you think I don't have the guts to lead a powerful army because of my so-called underwhelming presence? Gerard. Of course a leader is supposed to be commanding and powerful. You don't carry any of those traits, unlike Yhwach-sama. You're nothing but a fraud who wants the throne for himself. The room was full of tension as Jirard's spiritual pressure started to rise and was trying to overwhelm Naruto's. However, to everyone's surprise, Jirard falls to his knees and his face was being grabbed by Naruto, whose eyes were blood red and had slits in them. Naruto. You really believe that I have no right to inherit the throne? Alright, I think it's time I open up a seat in the Sternritters, cause I only recruit those deemed worthy, not filthy backtalkers. Oswalin. A bright blue pillar of light would engulf Jirard and his flesh would be stripped from his bones, leaving nothing but an empty husk that fell to the ground. Naruto would look up at everyone and speak in a cold tone that made them subconsciously shake out of fear and breathe hastily. Naruto. If any of you ever think you can stand up to me and try to belittle me again, I will strip the flesh off of your bones and erase your skeleton without any hesitation, is that understood? Everyone, Naruto, yes sir. Naruto's eyes would return to normal and he would sigh heavily. Not snapping like that for a long time made him feel a little bad, but he knew that being soft will get him nowhere, but he wasn't gonna be some selfish king that didn't care for his people. While everyone was recovering from that event, a hooded individual was twitching slightly, causing someone, Askin Lavar, to reach out and place a hand on them. Askin. Hey Pernida, you alright? However, the hooded figure, now known as Pernida, would release a screeching roar and burst from his hood, revealing a towering figure that took the appearance of a giant arm with two eyes in the palm of the hand. Pernida. New. Threat. Elimination. Required. 4. Balance. Nerves would explode out of Pernida's fingers and attempt to attach to Naruto. However, a barrier made from Reshi would erupt around him and absorb the nerves, hurting Pernida. Naruto. Blood Vene Anhaben. Pernida would form a bow and shoot an arrow at Naruto, but the barrier would absorb it as well, allowing Naruto to form his own bow and aim it at Pernida. Naruto. Sankt Bogan. Naruto would release a fury of arrows that stuck into Pernida before exploding, damaging the giant arm heavily, causing it to look towards one of the Sternritters, Bambietta, and generate a strand of nerves in an attempt to consume her. However, Naruto acted quickly and made a sword out of Reshi and slashed the nerves to pieces, making Pernida shriek out in pain, before using Hyrankyaku to blitz towards the giant arm and impale his sword into its eyes, blinding it and making it scream in agony, before placing his palm on it. Naruto. I can see why Yhwach hated his father and the Shinigami. This is just evil, allow me to regain what was taken from me. Blue lines of Reshi would spread throughout Pernida's body before glowing brightly and making the giant arm explode into blood and guts, which started to convulse and twitch violently before slowly moving towards Naruto and merging with his body, causing a violent explosion of spiritual pressure to engulf the room and make everyone fall to the ground. Baz B. Jugo. What the hell is happening? Jugram. I'm not completely sure Baz. I think your majesty is absorbing Pernida's power, which will resonate with Jirard's since both of them are parts of the Soul Cane. Leal. If Jirard didn't say anything, we could have avoided all of this. Askin. I agree with that completely. The Ryotsu would die down and everyone would see Naruto facing them. However, he was noticeably taller and more muscular, but the main thing that caught everyone's attention was his eyes, which were red like Yhwach's, but there were 3 irises in them and his sclera was pitch black like an endless pit of darkness. This sent creepy chills down everyone's spines as it seemed like they were staring at an eldritch god in the making, but that feeling went away as Naruto's eyes returned to their normal color and his Ryotsu was lifted off of everyone. Naruto. Sorry everyone. I hope none of you are too hurt or anything. Once again, everyone was surprised to see the genuine worry in his eyes as Naruto spoke to them, but no one was against it. In fact, they embraced it, feeling as if they truly had a leader that understood them. Baz B. Nah, it's alright your majesty. Are you alright though? I mean, it seemed like you took in a lot of power at one time, will that affect you in any negative way? Naruto. No, I'm perfectly fine actually. In fact, I feel better than ever. Naruto would stretch his body and feel like the chains that were restraining him were gone and he was allowed to move without struggle. Bambietta. Thank you for saving me, your majesty. I'm in your debt. Bambietta would bow her head while blushing slightly, expecting a rude response or none at all. However, she was surprised and full of joy at Naruto's next words. Naruto. Of course. Why would I let one of my own people die when I have a chance to save them? Don't be afraid to ask for help, regardless of how small the situation is. I'll always be there for you, Datbeo. Everyone felt like they saw a true god in the making when they looked at Naruto, which made them smile and take a knee before him while raising a fist in the air. Everyone, Naruto, we will serve you to the end, King Naruto. Flashback end. Jugram. Indeed, Your Majesty. It was a memorable moment for everyone. Are you saying that you'll be adding some new people into the Stern Ritter and/or Royal Guard? Naruto. Bingo. However, it isn't just new individuals. I'm also taking some members of the Stern Ritters and will be promoting them to members of my Royal Guard or into special leaders of specific groups. This shocked everyone but made them excited as they wondered who was getting promoted. Naruto would regain everyone's attention and make them line up. Naruto. Askin Nak Lavar, step up. Askin would do as he was told. Naruto. You will be a part of my Schutzstaffel and be the leader of the Wandenreich's medical team, understood? Askin was surprised, but smiled and nodded his head. Askin. You have my thanks and honors, Your Majesty. I promise to show how worthy I am in being a royal guard, no matter how lethal it can get. Naruto would grin and nod before lifting his finger and pointing at Bambietta, making her blush. Naruto. Miss Basterbine, you have also been promoted to Royal Guard and your group of girls will be an official group that you will have full control over and have the ability to recruit as many female soldiers into said group so long as you have my permission, alright? Bambietta was overjoyed and smiled brightly while blushing madly. Bambietta. Of course, Your Majesty. I won't let you down, and thank you for allowing the Bambis to become official. Naruto. Amazing. Now, as note, step up. As note, a slim, tall man who wore a mask, would step up and give Naruto a creepy eye smile. As note. Yes, Your Majesty? Naruto. You will be the head of interrogation and torture, is that alright with you? As note. That is more than enough, thank you very much. Naruto would grin and nod before pointing at Baz B. Naruto. Baz B, you and Jugram will be in charge of training lower-ranked soldiers, like Soldat, and you'll be vice-captain of the Stern Ritters under Jugram, alright? Baz B. Awesome, thanks Naruto, I won't disappoint you, I swear. Naruto. I bet you won't. Now, I have one more person that will be a part of the Schutzstaffel, however, they aren't in this room. Everyone raised an eyebrow and wondered who it could be. Then, Naruto would use the shadows to bring someone here. He was a young boy with messy blonde hair and red eyes wearing the typical Stern Ritter uniform with a hood donning atop his head. This was Gremmy Thumo, Sterntutor, v. the Visionary. At the sight of Gremmy, a lot of the members became weary and tensed, knowing how powerful Gremmy could be if he was allowed to realize his true potential, which was why Yhwach locked him up in the first place. Pepe. Gremmy. Why him, Your Majesty? He's nothing but a mon. Gremmy. Say anything else, I'll be sure to send you into the vacuum of space. Pepe would become silent and start to sweat slightly. Naruto. I know a lot of you are worried about Gremmy, however, if you took the time out of your day and got to know Gremmy, you'd understand that he doesn't have any bad motives or opinions on most of you. He just wants to expand his imagination and see how far he could go with it. Surprisingly, Lil Toto would step and walk up to Gremmy and look at him blankly before smiling slightly and opening her arms slightly. Gremmy would smirk softly and hug Lil Toto, causing a lot of confusion among the Stern Ritters, especially the Bambis, who, for a long time, though Lil Toto didn't have any positive feelings for anyone. Candace. What the fuck Lil? Since when are you lovey-dovey with Mr. Visionary over there? Lil Toto. Candy, shut up. I've known Gremmy before I met you all. He makes me sweets and food with his shrift, which are always amazing. Gremmy. Thanks Lil Toto. Gremmy would reach into his pocket and give Lil Toto a chocolate bar, which she took with zero hesitation. Lil Toto. Thank you. Naruto would clap his hands, gaining everyone's attention, and give everyone his trademark grin. Naruto. Alright, I believe it is time to move out. Get ready, because when we step outside into the world of ninja, we will make the world a better place and show our power to those who believe they can oppose us. Everyone, Naruto, yeah. A giant shadow portal would open up in the air, causing a dome to cover the entirety of Uzu and transform the desolated village into a modern city. Then, platoons of Quincy soldiers would emerge from the shadows and line up beside one another while saluting. Then, the Sternritters and Schutzstaffel would walk out of the shadows and line up on a giant platform, which is followed with Naruto floating down from the sky and standing in front of everyone with a charismatic smirk. Naruto. Hello my fellow Quincy's. I, Naruto Uzumaki, leader of the Wandenreich and reincarnation of the previous Quincy Kane. You watch. Have decided to bring us to the world that I was originally conceived in as a way for us to expand our power and prove why the Quincy are to never be underestimated. Everyone, Naruto, hora. Hora, Naruto. We will never fall. We will continue to rise again and again till we reach the top of the food chain. Everyone, Naruto, hora. Hora, Naruto. And, most important of all, Naruto would close his eyes and reopen them, showing the almighty we Quincy will take all whatever we want no matter who stands in our way, because we stand above all and the world will be ours. Everyone, Naruto, hora. Hora hora, Naruto Naruto. Scene change. Hidden Leaf Village. Tsunade was sitting in her office, doing paperwork and drinking her sake, when she got a knock at her door. Tsunade. Enter. The door opens up and an elderly man covered in bandages would enter the room, causing Tsunade to gain a face that had a mixture of disgust, hate, and distrust. Tsunade. Danzo. Why are you here? Danzo. I have some alarming news that you need to know. Tsunade. Then spit it out. Danzo. I'd advise you lower your two. Smash. Tsunade. Damint Danzo, I'm your Hokage. You don't tell me what to do, so spit it out. Danzo would sigh and pull out a scroll and hand it Tsunade. Danzo. I believe that a new village has risen, so I believe that we should take action to learn who they confirm as allies. Tsunade. How did you find this out? Danzo. I have my ways. Tsunade would narrow her eyes before opening the scroll and reading it all the way through. However, Tsunade's eyes would widen and her head would snap back up to Danzo. Tsunade. They're in Whirlpool Village. Danzo. Yes. However, there seems to be some form of barrier that prevents anyone from seeing into the inside of it, so we have no idea how big their population is or how powerful their forces are. Tsunade would nod, but keep a distrustful look towards Danzo. Tsunade. I appreciate the new information, however, do not think this will make me trust you in the slightest. Danzo. If this is due to Naruto Uzumaki's exile, then I'd advise yo. Danzo would be grabbed by his neck and be pushed up against a wall by a furious Tsunade. Tsunade. Do not say his name, it's because of you and the rest of those corrupted civilians that he's gone. Anbu members would try to calm Tsunade down so she would release her grip on Danzo. Neko. Lady Tsunade, please calm down. You're already on the Fire Demio's watch list, please calm down and release him. Boom. A loud explosion would shake the building and send shockwaves throughout the village, causing Tsunade to drop Danzo and rush outside. Danzo, on the other hand, would body flicker away and head back to his root hideout. However, when he got there, everything was destroyed and 90% of his root Anbu soldiers were dead. Danzo. What happened here? One of Danzo's most loyal soldiers, Torun Aburame, landed in front of him with a missing arm and a piece of his stomach was torn out of him. Danzo. Torun, what happened? Torun. Dan. Zosama. Run. Splat. Torun's head would pop like a balloon, spraying blood all over Danzo, and a slender woman with long, dark hair and brown eyes wearing an all-white uniform would float down from the air. A pair of crimson-red wings with small red orbs attached to the bottom of them were coming from her back and a unique-looking star was floating on the top of her head. Bambietta. Alright, I think this did the trick. Demo squad, link up. Danzo. Hey, Bambietta. Huh? What do you want, old man? Danzo. Did you do this? Bambietta. Yeah, it was wait. You're Shimura Danzo, aren't you? Danzo. Yes, IA. Boom. Danzo would be hit with an explosion, sending him into a wall, then Bambietta would appear above him and stomp on his head while preparing to blow him up. Bambietta. It was because of you that His Majesty suffered greatly. I should blow your body till nothing remains. However, His Majesty has plans and you will suffer soon, but I will be taking this. Bambietta would rip out the Sharingan of Shisui Uchiha from Danzo's eye socket before taking to the skies and disappearing through a portal. Scene change. Whirlpool Village. A portal would open up and Bambietta would walk out, along with a group of girls, and she would kneel down while deactivating her holy form. Bambietta. Naruto-sama, I have done as you asked. Danzo Shimura's root base has been destroyed and I've taken the eye of Shisui Uchiha from him. Naruto. Thanks, Bambi-chan. Mind stepping up here for a moment? Bambietta would blush and walk up to Naruto's throne, then Naruto would pull her onto his lap and give her a deep kiss on the lips, making Bambietta's blush deepen and her body tingle warmly. Naruto would pull away and take the eye from Bambietta's hand before smiling brightly. Naruto. Continue doing good and you'll earn better rewards like this from me, alright? Bambietta would nod dumbly with a dreamy look on her face before being teleported to her private quarters by Naruto. Jugram. Was that a good idea, Your Majesty? Naruto. What, Jugram? Using affection as a way to reward your female soldiers? Naruto. Shrugs shoulders, not sure, but I think it helps a lot. It's not like I'm using them for my own benefits or pleasure. Naruto would look down at the Sharingan in his hand and small nerves would attach to it and absorb it. Then, Naruto would close his eyes and reopen them, showing Shisui's Mangekyo Sharingan, which starts to spin and turns into a red Rinnegan. Orochimaru was laying down in a bed, coughing up some blood due to his current body getting ready to reject him, when Kabuto would enter the room with a tray of medicine. Kabuto. Here you go, Lord Orochimaru. He would place the tray down on Orochimaru's lap and open the bottle of pills for him, which the snake Sannin took immediately. Orochimaru. Thank you, Kabuto. Coughs roughly, but I need to get a body soon, otherwise. Naruto. You'll die. Kabuto and Orochimaru's eyes would widen at the sound of the new person, causing them to slowly turn their heads and see a tall man with dark, blonde hair sitting in the corner of the room, reading a book and drinking a cup of coffee. Kabuto would go to activate his chakra scalpels, but would feel a blade at his throat. Kang-do. Don't move. Unless you want to die, then stay right here. Orochimaru. Who are you people? Naruto. Oh come on, pedo snake. You don't remember me? Orochimaru. No, have we? Coughs violently. Met before? Naruto. Yep, our first time was in the Forest of Death 3 years ago. Ring any bells yet? Orochimaru would think slightly before widening his eyes. Orochimaru. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto. Ding ding ding. Good job, Snake Sannin. Kabuto. We heard you were exiled out of the leaf. Have you come here to join us? Naruto. Nah, I already have my own army that could wipe out all 5 nations by themselves if they wanted to. What I really came here for was to gain some information. Orochimaru. What makes you think that I will tell you anything, Uzumaki? Naruto. Because. Snaps fingers, causing a capsule containing 2 Rinnegan eyes to appear in his hand. I will give you these if you cooperate with me. Orochimaru and Kabuto's eyes would widen at the sight of the infamous dojutsu. Orochimaru. How do you have those eyes? Naruto. I've gained a lot after trying to stop you from taking the Uchiha's body. Kabuto. You don't seem shocked despite having the most powerful eyes in your hands. Naruto. That's because I can get more if I wanted, but that's besides the point. Orochimaru, are you willing to make a deal for the most powerful dojutsu? Orochimaru would narrow his eyes and hum slightly before smiling slyly. Orochimaru. Very well, Naruto-kun. What do you wish to know? Naruto. Do you have anybody that you don't need anymore? More specifically, past test subjects that you're running out use for. Orochimaru. Yes, I do. Remember my curse mark? Naruto. How could I not? Orochimaru. Well, the idea came from a boy named Jugo. He has a special bloodline that allows him to passively absorb nature energy, allowing him to transform his body in unique ways. However, because he's constantly absorbing nature energy, his mind isn't stable, which can make him go into random outbursts of killing anyone, anything around him. Naruto. You haven't found a way to calm him? Orochimaru. Unfortunately no, his bloodline is unique and rare within his clan, so there isn't a lot of background information on it I can find on it. Plus, because I haven't mastered Sage Mode, I can't teach him how to control the natural energy he's constantly absorbing. Naruto. I see, well, I have a way to sedate him and make him control his bloodline, so I'll take him off your hands. Anyone else? Orochimaru. Yes, I have a distant cousin of yours, Karen Uzumaki. Naruto. Really? Please, do tell. Orochimaru. I picked her up from the hidden grass village after she was nearly killed by the soldiers from overusing her unique ability to heal anyone who bites her and absorb her chakra. Naruto would raise an eyebrow before shaking his head. Orochimaru. She's also a very good sensor, and she has the ability to suppress her chakra to a point where she is nigh undetectable, making her a perfect scout. Also, I think she has the ability to awaken the adamantine chains if she had taken the shinobi route, but she is more of a brains over bronze type girl. Naruto. Understandable, I have a few soldiers who value intelligence over strength. Anyone else? Orochimaru. Yes, another girl. Her name is Shiroku. She comes from an unknown clan that allows her to use a bloodline that gives her complete control over poison and venoms. However, getting close to her is a death sentence since she doesn't know how it works, which was why she was kicked out of her hometown in the first place. Naruto. Very well, I think those three will do fine for me. Naruto would walk over to Orochimaru and place a hand on his head, confusing the Sannin. Orochimaru. What are you, a Grook JHBK? Orochimaru would be compressed into a small, compact ball before being consumed by Naruto, horrifying Kabuto. Kabuto. What did you? Naruto. I ate him. He didn't taste so well, but that might be because of the amount of bodily modifications he's done to himself. Kangdu. What will happen to this one, Your Majesty? Naruto. Meh, I don't know, I think I'll hand him over to his node, so, take him to the torture chambers. Kabuto. The WH. Kangdu would knock out Kabuto and throw him over his shoulders before disappearing into the shadows. Naruto would close his eyes and enter his mindscape to see it being completely covered in a flesh-like substance with other people being submerged in said substance. Then, Orochimaru would rise out of the ground and hiss at Naruto angrily. Orochimaru. You lied to me. Naruto. Yeah, what makes you think I was gonna trust you in the first place? Plus, I foresaw this outcome a long time ago. Orochimaru would chuckle darkly and smirk at Naruto evilly. Orochimaru. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna take your body and this so-called army of yours and destroy Konoha. However, when Orochimaru went to attack Naruto, blue arrows would pin him against the wall and a sword would be plunged into his chest, causing the Sannin to spit out blood. However, the thing that scared Orochimaru the most was when he looked at Naruto. Naruto. What's the matter? Afraid? Please Orochimaru, don't fall into despair. I don't like seeing my enemies sink to their feet in defeat before they die, it makes me feel bad. Orochimaru. What are you? Naruto would grin evilly and raise a hand towards Orochimaru. Naruto. A god. A bright light would engulf the mindscape and Orochimaru would be erased from existence by Naruto. Sometime later, Naruto would arrive on a vacant island and find a girl with purple hair and purple eyes sitting in a giant glass cage with vents on the top of it, which had a bright, thin mist leaking from it. Naruto. I assume you are Shiroku, no? Shiroku would look up and tilt her head curiously. Shiroku. Yes? Are you one of the snake's henchmen? Naruto. No, my name is Naruto Uzumaki. I just got rid of Orochimaru and I wanted to recruit you into my army. Shiroku would chuckle softly before sighing sadly. Shiroku. Well, if you know who I am, then you know why I'm locked in here. Naruto. That's true, however. Naruto would enter the room, causing Shiroku's eyes to widen as she got flashbacks of her past and how everyone around her died. But when she expected Naruto's body to drop, she felt a warm, soft hand on her shoulder and would look up and see a smiling Naruto looking at her with eyes of comfort. Naruto. I am no ordinary being, and I can prove that if you allow me to help you. Naruto would open his hand, wanting Shiroku to take it. Shiroku would hesitate before placing her hand on his and feeling this abnormal rush of euphoria course through her body, which stopped the release of the poison mist and made Shiroku smile brightly. Shiroku. What did you do? I feel so warm. Shiroku would look up at Naruto as if he were her knight in shining armor, which only became more prominent after Naruto grinned brightly. Naruto. I simply gave you the peace and love you were missing by gifting you a fragment of my soul. However, I can help you gain more if you join me and climb with me to the top. Will you stay by my side and become one of my queens and sit with me at the top of the world? Or will you stay at the bottom and remain stagnant like these poor fools? Shiroku would hug Naruto tightly and shed a few tears before lifting her head up. Shiroku. Take me with you. I want to know what it's like to gain everything you want. I want to be with you forever, please. Show me the future, our future. Naruto would grin and rub the back of her head softly before lifting his head up and looking towards the sky. Naruto. That's a good girl. I promise to give you everything so long as you work for it. The entire Wandenreich was standing outside since Naruto was about to make another announcement. Then, shadow portals would open up and all of the Sternritters would appear on stage before standing to the side as Naruto would rise from the shadows and get up from his throne with a confident smile on his face. Naruto. Alright, hello everyone. Naruto, good afternoon, Your Majesty. Naruto. Great. Now, I wanted to announce that there will be some arrangements to my Sternritters since I have some new people I want recruit and, most importantly, we will be making our existence truly public to the shinobi world. Everyone was surprised at Naruto's announcement but were ultimately curious on who was joining the Sternritter. Naruto. So, I'm sure some of you are wondering how I'll add new members to the Sternritters. Everyone would nod their heads yes. Naruto. Well, to make it simple, I'll be removing current members that I believe serve no purpose, value in my army or have been doing nothing but being an annoyance to me and the other members. Looks of shock and horror would appear on some of the Sternritters' faces, while others that knew they were in the clear were just smirking or smiling. Naruto. So, let's get started, shall we? Naruto would create a small orb in his hand that started to absorb reishi before chanting an all too familiar incantation that made the majority of the Quincy's sweat. Naruto. Raise them. Silver emblems, ashen meadows, circular path buried in light. Eye of agate, tongue of gold, skull cup, coffin of Agnius. The object we raise is your heart. Blue flames made of pure reishi would erupt from Naruto's hands as he shoots the orb into the air, causing it to expand into a giant ring in the sky and rain down columns of pure, raw energy. Naruto. Pepe, Nana, Jerome, Berenice, Driscoll, and BG9, step up. The 6 Sternritters would step up, sweat pouring down their faces as they knew that they were the ones to be selected. Naruto. The 6 of you have been chosen because you've either done something to invoke the wraith of your fellow Ritters, which in turn, invoking my wraith, or you've shown no further potential of growing in any means. So, I will be taking back my power and give it to those I deem worthy of it. Any last words? BG9. It was an honor to serve under you, Your Majesty. I apologize for my weakness and inability to prove my worth to you. Nah. I can't die, not like this. Pepe. Please, Your Majesty. Spare me. Driscoll. Shut up, fat ass, we're dying regardless, so save your pitiful tears. Anyways, all I have to say is that it's been one hell of a joyride. Jerome and Berenice would only lower their heads as they just accepted their fate. Naruto would nod his head before saying, Oswalin, causing the blue pillars of light to strike the 6 and strip them of their flesh from their bones, leaving nothing but empty husks that fell to the ground. Naruto. Now, time to announce the new members of the Sternritters. Jugo, Karen, and Shiroku would emerge from the shadows and kneel next to Naruto. Naruto. Ah, we're forgetting one more person. Come, Kyuubi. Naruto would slam his hand down on the ground and a large cloud of smoke would poof into existence before clearing up to reveal a busty woman with pure, white hair, light blue eyes, and 9 giant tails that swayed behind her would appear and kneel next to Naruto and look at him with a foxy grin. Amaya. Hello, Your Majesty. Naruto. Amaya-chan, about time you be released from your bindings. Naruto would look towards the other 3 before lifting his hand up to the sky and have pillars of energy hit them as well. However, instead of taking their power, it gave them additional power and converted them into kinesis. Naruto. I have given you 4 your own shrifts and designations among the Sternritters. Jugo, you shall be granted the letter R, which will stand for the Rampage. With it, your killer instincts, when they reach their highest, will grant you complete immunity to all forms of pain and damage. Naruto would tap Jugo on the forehead and the shrift would be transferred to him. Then, Naruto would move to Karen. Naruto. Karen, my fellow cousin, you shall be granted the letter C, which stands for the celestial, which will allow you to control the divine skies to make all of the inferior fools who oppose us bow before you. Naruto would tap Karen on the head and transfer the shrift to her. Then, Naruto would move to Shiroku. Naruto. Shiroku, the letter you'll be receiving is the letter M, which stands for the miasma. It'll amplify your poison-generating bloodline to a point where, at its highest level, you'll be able to erase anything from existence if it comes in contact with your poison. Naruto would tap Shiroku on the head and transfer the shrift to her before moving on to Amaya. Naruto. And finally, Amaya. You'll be given the letter K, which will stand for the chaos, which will allow you to become stronger the more chaotic and calamitous an attack is. Naruto would tap her on the head and transfer the shrift to her before looking to the front. Naruto. Now, before I leave and make our existence known, I have one more message to leave all of you. Everyone's attention was on their king as they waited for his last announcement. Naruto. One day, someone will inherit my throne and it will be one of my own offspring. So, I've decided to choose multiple wives as my queens and as a way to help rebuild the clan of my shinobi ancestors. Surprise would erupt from the crowd before loud cheering would emerge as everyone was happy and curious for the lucky women that would be the lover of their king. Naruto. Alright, settle down, I've already picked out a few women of my choosing, but I will be adding more to the roster if I feel like they're worth my love. Now, my current queens will be Bambietta Basterbine, Candace Catnip, Giselle Gewell, Shiroku, and Amaya. The three Bambis would squeal in excitement, while Shiroku and Amaya just smiled seductively as they looked towards their new husband with unfathomable amounts of lust. Naruto. That is all I have for you today. Now, it's time that the shinobi world learns who the strongest nation is from this day forward. Everyone would cheer loudly and chant Naruto's name endlessly. In Naruto's chambers, before Naruto would make his departure, he would get a knock at his door. Naruto. Enter. The door would open and Giselle would walk into the room. Naruto. Ah, Giselle-chan. Is there something you need? Giselle. Yeah, I wanted to know why you chose me as one of your wives if you know that I'm a guy. Naruto would grin slightly before walking up to Giselle and placed a warm hand on his face. Naruto. Simple, 'cause I can do this. Nerves would emerge from Naruto's hand and cover Giselle's body before returning to Naruto's hand, which he removed from Giselle's face. Giselle. What did you? Naruto would motion towards Giselle's skirt, causing him to open it and realize that Naruto had forcibly changed his gender, causing Giselle to tear up and hug Naruto tightly. Giselle. Thank you, Naruto-sama. Naruto would chuckle and rub Giselle's back softly. Naruto. No problem, Giselle-chan. Giselle would look up at Naruto with a lustful expression and place her hand near his thigh and start to rub it softly. Giselle. Can I reward you for making me happy, your majesty? Naruto would grin before removing Giselle's hand from his thigh. Naruto. Once my meeting is over, you and the other girls will get all of me, I promise. Giselle's smile would only widen as she kisses Naruto on the lips passionately before releasing herself from him and skipping out of his room, causing the Quincy King to smile and finish getting ready for the Cage Summit. Location. Land of Iron. Tsunade, 4th Raikage A, Maid Terumi, Gaara, and Onoki would all take their seats, as their advisors would sit behind them, and look at one another with a mixture of neutrality and distrust. Then, Mifune would enter the room and take his seat before clearing his throat to speak. Mifune. All right, the 5-Cage Summit has been called and will begin now. What are the reasons for this summit to be held? Tsunade. I'm not sure, to be honest, I wasn't the one who called this meeting anyway. Indeed, neither did I call for this summit. Onoki. It wasn't me either, after all, I don't have any reason to be here or to speak with any of you. Gaara. I didn't call this meeting either, I'm still getting settled in as a Cage, so I would see no reason to call everyone here. May. As much as I would like to say it was me, I didn't call this meeting. Kiri is still recovering from the bloodline purge, although, if anyone wants to lend a hand into recovery hasting then I wouldn't be against it. Mifune. Well, if no one here called the meeting, then WH. Naruto. It was I. Everyone would get on guard as they heard the voice echo throughout the room. Hey, who's there? Suddenly, the shadows would converge to the middle of the room and a portal would open up, allowing for 5 figures to step up and kneel down, confusing everyone until they saw the shadows form the outline of a throne with a person sitting on it. Naruto. Rise. The 5 figures would stand up and stand next to the throne, which could be seen by everyone now since the shadows have dispersed, allowing everyone in the room to see a tall, young man with bright blonde hair and ocean blue eyes sitting on an all-black throne with Uzumaki swirls embedded on it. Naruto. Hello fellow Kage. My name is Uzumaki Naruto and I was the one who called for this meeting. Gaara and Tsunade. Naruto? Onoki. Hokage, Case Cage, you both know this brat? Suddenly, a small blue orb would fly past Onoki's head and explode, causing everyone to turn and see Bambietta glaring at Onoki with a dangerous look. Bambietta. Watch your mouth. Do not disrespect His Majesty unless you want to die. Before things could escalate, Naruto would flex his Ryotsu, making Bambietta fall to her knees. Naruto. Bambi-chan, I understand your loyalty and your will to back me up, however, we are only here to acknowledge our existence. So, do not act out like that again, is that understood? Bambietta. Why yes, Your Majesty. I apologize for my outburst. Naruto would lift his Ryotsu off of Bambietta before pulling her onto his lap, making her blush slightly, and looking towards the Tsunade. Naruto. Hey granny, how's life been for ya? Tsunade would shed a few tears before wiping them away and smiling warmly towards the blonde. Tsunade. It's been somewhat okay. But when did you become the Cage of Whirlpool? Naruto. About a month ago. However, how is the bandaged Warhawk? Tsunade. Danzo? He's in a medically induced coma. Wait. Did you? Naruto would grin confidently before rubbing the head of Bambietta, which she leaned into. Naruto. This one was the person that caused the destruction of his rude organization. Tsunade would look towards Bambietta with a surprised look before giving her a confident grin. Tsunade. Thanks for stepping in when you did. You took a tumor off my back and made my life so much easier. Bambietta. No problem. You stood by His Majesty's side when he lost everything and prevented his execution, so you have the respect of his entire army. Naruto would look over at Gaara and give him a smile. Naruto. Hey Gaara, has the cage seat been stressful for you? Gaara would chuckle softly and nod his head. Gaara. It has, but seeing you has removed some of it off of my shoulders. Naruto would chuckle before looking towards Mifune. Naruto. May I voice my purpose of calling this meeting, Mifune-san? Mifune would nod his head and allow Naruto to speak. Naruto. I, Naruto Uzumaki, am the new Cage of Whirlpool Village. I am here to ask if any of want to be allies. May. Well, what benefits will we get by being contracted allies with you? Naruto. A lot actually. Jugram. Mind telling them what benefits they'll acquire if they decide to ally with us? Jugram would nod and use Reishi to create a chart with a graph on it. Jugram. By becoming allies with His Majesty, your villages will acquire natural resources beyond your comprehension and firepower that eclipses all of your own combined. Also, we have access to technology far more advanced than anyone in the elemental nations, so we have access to numerous ways to enhance our well-being while keeping our enemies in their place. Gaara would raise his hand. Jugram. Yes, Case-Kage-san? Gaara. When it comes to the exchange of resources, how fast can they be delivered from your side and how much can we get? Onoki. Good question. Jugram. We have the ability to use space-time techniques, so our delivery speed is nigh instantaneous, and the amount you receive depends on how much of it you want. So, if you want or you're in need of cargoes of rare metals or herbs, we can produce them for you with little to no sweat. O would raise his hand. Jugram. Yes, Reikage-san? How powerful is this army that your village holds? Jugram would go to answer but would be stopped by Naruto, who held a hand up and looked towards the Reikage with a menacing smile. Naruto. My royal guards are 1 to 2 of my stern ridders, which are the stronger parts of my army, could wipe out all of the great 5 nations in a single day. A would look at Naruto with a challenging smirk and would stand up out of seat as his lightning cloak came around his body. Darui. Welp, looks like a fight's about to happen. This is so dull. See? Yeah, but I have a feeling that something bad is gonna happen. Yugito, inner thoughts. Hey Nibi, is it just me or is that guy a container? Two Tails. Yeah kitten, he's definitely a Jinchuriki, but that doesn't really matter and you'll see why. A would speed blitz in front of Naruto and throw a punch towards him, but would be stopped as his lightning cloak was stripped from his body by Naruto, who was holding a circular device in his hand. What happened? Why did my lightning armor disappear? Askin. It's simple really, His Majesty just stole your jutsu. He stole it? Naruto. Indeed. I've created these little devices called medallions, which have the ability to steal a jutsu or bloodline from someone and give it to the person holding the medallion. Before, they had a limit on how many techniques and bloodlines they could steal, however, I've recently solved that issue and gave them a limitless storage. Naruto would activate the medallion and a lightning cloak would appear around him, but, instead of the normal blue lightning, it was now black lightning, shocking all of the Cloud Ninja. Naruto. Oh yeah, if a medallion wielder is stronger than their opponent, the techniques they steal from them will be amplified to new heights. And, let me remind you all, I can mass-produce these medallions like sheets of paper, so let me ask you this. Reikage-san. Do you think your village could win against mine with tools and jutsu like these? A would shake his head and sit down in his chair, feeling a mixture of respect and fear for the young blonde Cage. Naruto would disable the medallion, allowing it to regain his technique, and look towards Mei Terumi. Naruto. If I'm not mistaken, you just got out of a civil war, so would you like some assistance in rebuilding your village? Mei would smile slyly towards Naruto and nod her head gracefully. Mei. Yes, that would be pleasant and very helpful. Also, I would like to become allies with your village, Azukaja-san. I see no reason not to if we gain nothing but immeasurable amounts of benefits. Naruto would smile brightly towards Mei before looking towards the other Cage. Naruto. What will you guys' answers be? Gaara. I'll be allying with you, Naruto. Tsunade. I still need to make up where I couldn't, so of course I'll be allying with you as well, brat. Your power is unlike others, and your statue surpasses mine, so consider our villages allied as well. Onoki. I think I'll pass, thank you very much. Everyone, besides Naruto, would look at the old Cage as if he grew a second head. Mei. Not to be rude, Tsuchikage-san, but why would you deny his alliance? Onoki. I'm not desperate like the majority of you, and despite his list of benefits, my village can sustain itself without the need of this young boy's help. You're more stubborn than I thought you'd be, Onoki. I'd second that notion. Everyone would get startled, besides Naruto, and look towards the ceiling to see a man in an orange mask with a single eye hole in it that showed a Sharingan looking down on them before disappearing in a swirling vortex and in front of Naruto, looking at him with a dangerous gaze. It was about time you show yourself, Nine Tails. Naruto. I'd say the same thing for you too, Madara Uchiha. Everybody, Naruto and the Quincy's, Madara Uchiha. Naruto. Don't be too alarmed, he's nothing but a fake. Toby would look down on Naruto with his one narrowed eye. Toby. What makes you think that? Naruto and Toby. That I am a fake? Toby, along with the other Cage, were surprised at Naruto saying the exact same sentence as Toby at the same time as he spoke. Naruto. Look, Madara. If you try to wage war on us or anyone allied with me, you're gonna regret it. Plus, that plan of yours won't bring her back. Toba's eye would widen before narrowing in anger as he looked at Naruto. Toby. I don't know how you acquired that information, but don't think you will win this, Uzumake Naruto. Naruto. I don't need to think, cause I already know that I will win. Toby would look at the other 5 Cage before smirking underneath his mask. Toby. Anyways, I came here to declare war on the 5 great nations and to inform all of you that the Akatsuki will prevail and take all of the tailed beast for our one and true goal. Tsunade. And what will that be? Before Toby could answer, Naruto would beat him to it. Naruto. He plans on bringing back the Jubi, 10 tails. Toby. How do you know that? Naruto. If you bring that beast here, It'll only cause mass destruction and endless chaos to this world. That's until I take care of it, of course, but they won't know that till later on. You can't control it, Toby. TCH. Screw this. I hereby declare the start of the 4th Great Ninja War on all of you. Prepare great nations, cause we will strike hard and heavy. Toby would disappear in a swirling vortex, leaving a quiet room. Then, Naruto would stand up and open a portal. Tsunade. Where are you going? Naruto. Back to my village. I had to get things settled and prepared for this war. But I'll also send the necessary resources over to you guys so you can also prepare. Right, we can't waste time sitting here doing nothing. I agree. Let's return to our villages and get ready for war. Mifune. Do not count a samurai out either. Whatever this, Jubi, is, I doubt it'll be anything good or benevolent. So, let's get started. Tsunade would go over to Naruto and hug him tightly before pulling away. Tsunade. Be careful, alright brat? Naruto. Don't worry, Ba-chan. Masked boy wouldn't be able to kill me no matter how hard he tried. Before Naruto left, he looked at Tsunade and left her with a final message. Naruto. Also, tell Kakashi that he's gonna see an old friend of his very soon. Scene change. Whirlpool Village. After arriving back home, Naruto would tell everyone that the 4th Great Shinobi World War has been declared on everyone by the masked man from the Akatsuki. So, he had his entire army prepare themselves and ship out the necessary resources to their allied nations. However, once Naruto returned to his personal quarters, he was gifted with a beautiful sight. The girls. Hello Naruto-sama. Naruto would pause slightly and blink a few times before grinning widely and closing the door behind him and activating a room silencing seal. Naruto. So, all of this is for me? Giselle. Who else here is named Naruto-sama? Bambietta. Yeah, after all, we've been nominated as being your queens, so we have to show you why we deserve that title. Candace. Just know, I'll do the best out of all of them. I'll be sure to make you come as fast as possible and take in all of your kids. Amaya. Enough talk. Shiroku. Just get over here and fuck us till we can't walk for the next few months. Naruto would only chuckle and remove his clothes before making a single hand sign. Naruto. Well, let's get this party started. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Poof. A large mass of Naruto clones would appear in the room and be separated equally among the girls, which made all of them cheer gleefully. Alright. Quick pause here. This entire scene will be its own part since there are 5 different females and a multitude of Narutos. So, don't worry, for the horny readers that want to see some action, the next chapter will be going over this entire scene alone. However, if you can't wait that long, take a trip over to my Gremi X Izuku story, which has a chapter completely dedicated to the horny you may or may not want, so have fun if you do. Otherwise, let's get back to the story. Time skip. 3 days later, they fucked for 2 days straight and slept in all day for the third one. Location. Hidden Leaf Village. Tsunade was doing some paperwork at her desk, which was making her visibly upset and aggravated, until she heard a knock on her door. Tsunade. Enter. In walks Hinata Hyuga, princess and heir to the Hyuga clan. Also, she is Tsunade's apprentice. Hinata. Hey, Tsunade-sama. Tsunade. Hinata-chan, please, come and sit down, your company will be very much needed here. Hinata would sit down in front of her teacher and look down nervously. Tsunade. Hinata, what's on your mind? You've become a lot more talkative after a few years, so what's got you back on quiet girl mode? Hinata would blush before taking a deep breath. Hinata. I heard that you saw Naruto-kun at the Cage Summit meeting a few days ago. Is it true? Tsunade. Yes, I did see him and he's changed a lot, but only in certain categories, otherwise else, he's still the same brat we all know and love. Naruto. Oh come on granny. If you're gonna talk about me, at least say it to my face. The Anbu in the room would come down and surround Tsunade's desk in a defensive position until she told them to lower their guard since she knew this was Naruto talking. Then, after a few moments, the shadows would merge into one and Naruto would appear in the middle of the room, causing Hinata's eyes to widen in shock. Hinata. En Naruto K-kun? Naruto would grin before smiling softly and opening his arms out for a hug. Naruto. In the flesh. How have you been, Hinata-chan? In a flash, Hinata would crash into Naruto and hug him tightly while crying tears of joy and passion. After a few moments, Hinata would break away from Naruto and look at him with a bright smile. Hinata. I missed you, Naruto-kun. Naruto. I know, I missed you too, Hinata-chan. Tsunade. Hey, if you two are done with your little love reunion, then let's get on to why you're here, Naruto. Naruto. Hey, don't get mad at me because you're too old to get a man, Ba-chan. Tsunade would hop over her desk and throw a Chara-enhanced punch towards Naruto, but the Azukage would smirk and catch her fist with ease, causing a small shockwave that made the windows crack slightly. Tsunade. Damn, how strong are you, Naruto? Strong enough. Naruto would release Tsunade's fist and look at her seriously. Naruto. All jokes aside, I've come here to talk about war and plans of the enemy. Tsunade would become serious herself and sit back down in her chair. Tsunade. Very well, what's the news? Scene change. Soul Society. 1 month has passed since the defeat of Sosuke Aizen by the hands of Ichigo Kurosaki. However, the head captain of the Gote 13, Genryusai Shigekuni Yamamoto, was sitting in his office and felt oddly uneasy about something, which would be made worse when the captain of the 12th Division, Mayuri Kurasuchi, came into the room. Yamamoto. Mayuri, what do you need to speak with me about? Mayuri. Head captain, we have a problem on our hands. Yamamoto. Well, what is it? Mayuri. The Quincy King has been reborn. Yamamoto's eyes would widen in horror and shock as those words left Mayuri's mouth. Yamamoto. What? Mayuri. I know, it's hard to believe, but he's returned and he's arised a powerful army and is currently residing in the human realm. Yamamoto. But, how is he alive? I killed him. Chojiro was there as well. He helped me land the finishing blow on Yawatch and rid him of this world forever. Mayuri. If I had to give the best hypothetical answer, it's best to believe before he was killed. He found a way to reincarnate himself or transfer his status as the Quincy King to a successor of his. Yamamoto would look out of his window that showed the entirety of the Sariete and sigh somberly. Mayuri. We need to act quickly before they move upon us. If we allow him to accumulate any more power, it could spill the doom of us all. Yamamoto. No, we must observe and train to improve our strength. If we attack with our current power, I doubt we'll be able to beat him and his army. So, with that being said, come up with some solution to help counteract the Quincy's and their abilities, understood? Mayuri would narrow his eyes before turning away with a scoff. Mayuri. Very well. If you're afraid, then Mayuri would be grabbed by his neck and be slammed against a wall by Yamamoto, who was looking at him with eyes of fury and discipline. Yamamoto. I am the head captain of the Gote 13, do not disrespect me again. Mayuri Kurosuitchi. Otherwise, I'll bring back Kazuki Urahara and give him control of the division he created, is that understood? Mayuri would be choking from the grip and the rising hot ryotsu of the captain commander in front of him, but would nod in response before being thrown out of the room by the old man and having the door slammed behind him. Mayuri. Rubbing his neck tch. However, as Mayuri walked away, a short, shadowy figure could be seen in the corner of the room observing the entire ordeal go down, and this figure was Gwenyul Lee, a creation of Gremi Thumo's visionary who acts a spy for the Wandenreich. Lee. Seems like the Shinigami have discovered our existence. No matter, His Majesty will have the counters ready at any point in time, he. Lee would sink into the shadows and disappear from the barracks of the 1st Division. Scene change. Naruto's royal chambers. Jugram had just got done with training the soldat and transporting the necessary resources to their allied villages. He went and entered Naruto's room to inform him of news that Gwenyul Lee had given him. However, what he would see would be something he wished he could remove from his mind. Jugram. Opens Naruto's door. Your Majesty, there's some. The sight Jugram would see is Naruto getting sucked off by a naked Giselle as he sits on his throne, which made Jugram blush from embarrassment and turn his back. Naruto. Oh, hey Jugram, you need something? Jugram. Your Majesty, could you? Naruto. Jugram, face me when you talk to me. Jugram would inhale and exhale before turning back around and facing Naruto, trying to avoid looking at the naked Giselle and block out the slurping sounds coming from her actions, which was extremely difficult for the normally stoic Sternritter Grandmaster. Jugram. I was informed by Gwenyul Lee that Soul Society has discovered your rebirth and are planning to find a way to. Naruto would lift a finger, silencing Jugram, before closing his eyes and releasing a small grunt before sighing and opening his eyes. Naruto. All right, continue. Jugram would sigh before continuing. Jugram. As I was saying, Soul Society is currently improving their battle strength and are trying to formulate a plan to end our existence. How should we prepare? Naruto would place a hand under his chin as he leaned back on his throne before shrugging his shoulders nonchalantly. Naruto. We do nothing. Jugram. What? Naruto. Unless Squad Zero themselves come down and train every single Shinigami in the Gotei 13, we won't have to do much to take them down. If anything, just look out for the special war potentials I have listed in the guidebook when you, if encounter them. Otherwise, the rest of the Shinigami are nothing but cannon fodder to us. Jugram would remain silent but nod his head as he understood what Naruto was getting at. Jugram. Very well, Your Majesty. That was all I had to tell you, so I shall take my leave. As Jugram turned away to leave, Naruto would call out to him, causing the older blonde to turn and face his king. Naruto. You should find someone for yourself. And what I mean by someone, I mean a lover. I don't want you to be lonely once everything is finished, so, find someone to connect with and be with, alright? Jugram would ponder the thought before nodding his head and leaving the chamber. Once Jugram did leave, Giselle would lift her head up and look at her husband, King, with a sly, seductive smile. Giselle. Now that he's gone, can we get to the real fun, Your Majesty? Naruto. Of course, let's begin, shall we? Scene change. Konohagakure. Naruto would be walking down the streets of the Leaf Village with an impassive gaze on his face. He was heading towards the Hyuga compound to speak with Hinata until he ran into three individuals that he wished he could have avoided seeing for the rest of his life. Kakashi. And Naruto? Sakura. Naruto? Sasuke. Dobi? Naruto would sigh and look at his old team with a blank gaze, however, his tone didn't hold back the cold animosity he felt towards them all. Naruto. Hello, Team 7. Kakashi. Come on, Naruto. You know that I am. Naruto. You were my sensei, however, that is a stretch in and of itself, seeing as you never taught me anything useful. Sasuke. Scoffs. Naruto. You got something smart to say, Uchiha? If so, I want you to remember who put you in a coma the last time we fought. Sasuke would glare at Naruto but would say nothing in response. However, Sakura would step up and look Naruto in the eyes, which seemed to be full of nothing but hate and darkness for her specifically. Sakura. And Naruto, I just wanted to. Naruto would raise a hand towards her, making Sakura go silent as she thought he was about to speak. But, instead, Naruto snapped his fingers and the shadows would merge together and Candace would appear from it. Candace. Hey Naruto, are you okay? You seem angry abo. As Candace turned around and saw the face of Sakura, her expression went from worry to rage as her killing intent through the roof, causing Kakashi and Sasuke to fall to the floor while Sakura looked on in absolute fear as Candace grabbed her by the neck. Candace. You're that pink-haired bitch that broke my king a few years ago. I'd ought to kill your skank ass for putting your hands on my husband and disrespecting him after he brought back this DAMMNED Uchiha for you in this BACKWAS village. Candace would throw Sakura onto the ground before charging a lightning bolt in her hand in preparation for eviscerating Sakura, but would be stopped by Naruto, who would whisper something in her ear that made Candace smile evilly. Candace. You're so fucking lucky, Banshee. But don't worry, when the time comes, me and the girls are going to beat yo ass. Candace would kiss Naruto on the cheek before disappearing into the shadows. Naruto would look down on his former teammates before stepping over them and continuing in the direction of the Hyuga compound. As Naruto arrived at the Hyuga compound, he would run into Neji, who was surprised and happy to see him. Neji. Naruto. Naruto. Neji, nice to see you once more. Is Hinata-chan here? Neji. Yes. Follow me, I'll take you to her. Naruto would nod and the two of them would walk around the compound and catch up with one another until they arrived at Hinata's room. Neji. Here it is. Naruto. Thank you, Neji. Before you go, I wanted to give you something. Neji. Really? What is it? Naruto would smirk slightly before opening his hand to reveal a small blue orb, which he gave to Neji. Naruto. That is a fragment of your father's soul. If you ever want to talk to him, just pump some chakra into it and meditate. Your spirit will enter his place in the Pure Lands and you'll be able to see him. Neji would be shocked at this gift from Naruto, but would smile and hug him before saying thank you and walking off. Once Neji walked off, Naruto would knock on Hinata's door before hearing a female voice say, "Come in," from the other side, causing him to open it and walk into the room. Hinata. Naruto-kun. Naruto. Hello, Hinata-chan. Hinata would go over and hug Naruto tightly before looking up at him with soft, loving eyes. Hinata. Not that I don't mind you being here, but why are you here? Naruto. Well, I wanted to know if you would like to be one of my future wives once I establish world peace. Hinata would blush heavily, but would smile brightly and hug Naruto tighter. Hinata. Of course, I'd be more than willing to be a wife of yours, Naruto-kun. Naruto would chuckle and run his hand through Hinata's hair before reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small red pill. Hinata. What's that? Naruto. It's a shrift pill. Usually, I do a ritual that makes a person drink a cup of my blood so that I can imprint a piece of my soul onto them so they can receive a unique power. However, I made this process much easier by creating a pill filled with my blood. Also, every pill has a flavor that you like so you don't get the taste of blood in your mouth. Hinata would take the pill and look at it curiously. Naruto. Once you ingest this pill, you will signify your love to me and your loyalty to my village. Are you ready? Hinata. Of course I am. No matter what village I fight for, I will always love you, Naruto-kun. Hinata would swallow the pill and taste the feeling of her favorite food, which is cinnamon rolls, from it. Then, Hinata's chakra would spike up before going back down as she felt a euphoric rush of power course through her veins, causing her Byakugan to activate unconsciously before evolving into something extraordinary. Naruto. The Tenseigan. Those look awesome. Hinata. What happened and why are you looking at me like that, Naruto-kun? Naruto would smile before grabbing a mirror and showing Hinata's own reflection, causing the Hyuga girl to gasp in shock and amazement at her new set of eyes. Hinata. What are these eyes? Naruto. They're the Tenseigan, reincarnation eye. They're a rare evolution of the Byakugan that can only be achieved by obtaining the chakra of the younger brother of the Rikudo Sennin, Hamura Otsutsuki. Hinata. But, how did I awaken them? Naruto. Since you're a part of the main Hyuga house, you have a direct connection to Hamura and his chakra. So, by ingesting the shrift pill, your body brought out all of the latent spiritual essence dwelling within you, thereby allowing you to awaken the Tenseigan. Also, the shrift I've bestowed upon you is the letter Q. The Queen, which allows you to subjugate the minds of anyone you deem weaker than yourself and use their abilities via special soul chains you can create through the use of Reishi. Hinata. Reishi? Naruto. Oh yeah, I have to get someone to teach you about the history of Quincy's and stuff. However, before Naruto could continue his conversation with Hinata, Gremmy would appear from a portal and his face was serious. Gremmy. Your Majesty, I have bad news. Naruto would turn serious since he knows that Gremmy is never this serious. Naruto. Speak. Gremmy. The Soul King's royal guards are at the front door of the village. Naruto's expression would become cold before he would release a sigh and look towards Hinata with a serious gaze. Naruto. I have to get some business taken care of, I'll be back as soon as I can, okay? Hinata would smile and kiss Naruto on the lips before pulling away. Hinata. Just don't die, alright? Naruto would smirk and nod before disappearing into the shadows with Gremmy. Scene change. Uzushigakure, Wandenreich base. Naruto would appear on top of his cage building and would look down on the Shinigami he despised the most with a look of ruthlessness. Ichibe would look up at Naruto with a small, mocking smile as the other Squad Zero members remained behind him. Ichibe. You watch. It's been a long time, little boy. Naruto. Ichibe Hayasubi. State your business or face my wrath. Ichibe would shake his head as Naruto floated down in front of him. Ichibe. Even after you reincarnate, you can't learn to not say my name when I tell you not to speak it. Naruto. What do you want? Ichibe. Simple. I came here to try and negotiate with you. We both know that you don't want to wage war on Soul Society again. Naruto. Leave. Ichibe. Excuse me? Naruto's Ryotsu would explode and cause the other Squad Zero members to kneel down, while Ichibe stood tall. Also, Naruto would open his eyes to reveal the Almighty was fully activated and were burning into Ichibe. Naruto. I said, leave. Naruto would raise a hand towards Ichibe in an attempt to erase him from existence, but Ichibe would outstretch his hand and a large shadow-like arm would emerge and wrap around Naruto and forcibly deactivate his Almighty, surprising the young Quincy Kane. Ichibe. I tried to be civil with you, but it seems I had to show you your place, little boy. And with that, Ichibe and the rest of Squad Zero would return back to the royal palace, leaving a shocked and furious Naruto. Naruto. That fat monk sealed my Almighty again. Sternritters. Stern Ritters. Yes, your majesty. Naruto would turn around and look at his army with a cold look. Naruto. Prepare for war. This will be the last time that the Shinigami try to control me and my people. Naruto was standing in front of a shocked Nagato and Conan, who were surprised and slightly afraid of the fact the strongest tailed beast container was not only in their base, but was directly in front of him and did not seem to be so happy. Naruto. Hello, Nagato. Nagato. How did you find me, Uzumaki Naruto? Naruto. I've always known where you were. I just allowed you and the Akatsuki to think that you all had the element of surprise. However, I have more important things to deal with than this little group of emos, so stop whatever plan you have and disband the Akatsuki. Nagato. I can't do that, this war. Arrrrghhhh. Naruto would use the compulsory to compress Nagato into a small ball of flesh before absorbing Nagato completely, shocking and horrifying Conan. Then, Naruto would turn towards Conan and look at her coldly. Naruto. Do you surrender or no? Conan would fall on her butt and back up against a wall before hugging herself and looking down in fear, showing she wasn't going to attack, making Naruto scoff before turning around and reaching down towards the ground and pulling Black Zetsu from his shadow. Naruto. Think I didn't sense you, little worm? B. Zetsu. H. How? I was. Naruto. Shut up. Naruto would absorb Black Zetsu and obtain all of the malleable shadow's memories, causing Naruto to find out about the existence of Kagaya and the origin of chakra on Earth. Naruto. Kagaya Otsutsuki, interesting. Naruto would glance at the stunned Conan before sighing and walking over to her, causing the woman to shrink down in fear until she felt a warm hand on her shoulder, making her look up to see a compassionate Naruto looking at her. Naruto. I apologize for killing your last friend. I'm dealing with stuff of my own and I had an outburst. Allow me to make it up for you. Naruto would place a hand on Conan's stomach and a small purple glow emanated off Naruto's hand before dying down. Conan. What did you do? Naruto. Prevented you from having a miscarriage. Conan's eyes would widen as she realized that she was carrying a baby, making her cry tears of joy. Naruto would pat her the back and hug her softly before standing up and walking towards the balcony, where the rain was slowly clearing up and the sun could be seen in the rain village for the first time in years. Naruto. Conan. Yes? Naruto. Go to the sand and tell their cage that I sent you there for refuge. If they need proof. A blue piece of paper would appear into Conan's hands. Naruto. That should be good enough, alright? Conan. Okay, but I was in the Akatsuki, so, won't they kill me on sight? Naruto. No, they won't. Since none of the current Akatsuki members know that Pain is dead, they'll continue hunting the tailed beasts, which means any village that gets their hands on a prisoner will have no qualms with trying to extract info out of them. After that, Naruto would disappear in a black blur and would arrive in a laboratory to see Tobi getting ready to leave until he saw Naruto standing there, making his soul Sharingan eye widen in shock. Tobi. How did you find this place, Nine Tails? Naruto, without warning, would appear behind Obito and the masked man would scream out as his eye would be ripped out of his eye socket and he would be kicked into a wall. Naruto. I'll be sure to do Kakashi one last favor by making sure you actually stay dead. Obito. Wah. Tear. Splash. Naruto would walk up and tear Obito's throat out, causing blood to spray everywhere, and the blind man would fall down on the ground as a pool of blood spilled out around him. Then, Naruto would look at the wall containing hundreds of Sharingan eyeballs and would absorb all of them before leaving the lab and blowing up completely, leaving no trace behind. Suddenly, Jugram would emerge from the shadows and kneel next to Naruto. Jugram. Your Majesty, we were able to get a successful portal to her location. Naruto. Alright, let's get this over with. Scene change. Mukin. Aizen. Well, seems like the reborn Quincy King has came to chat with me, Naruto. Amaya Aizen, one of the 5 special war powers and one of the few souls to reach transcendence, it's a pleasure to meet you. I already know about your little Kyoka Suigetsu and about your fusion with your Zanpakuto, so, I have counters for it so I don't fall for M. Aizen. Wow, you came prepared and packed, that's nice and smart. Why are you here? Don't tell me the Quincy King is here for my help? Naruto. No, not at all, in fact, I came here to know what your future plans are. Aizen. Oh, Naruto. I know everything about you, Aizen. So, I know you have some future objective or goal you want to reach or achieve for your own benefit. So, what is it? Aizen would chuckle softly before shaking her head. Aizen. I don't have any new goals, you watch. I'm just, Naruto. Naruto. Aizen. Excuse me? Naruto. Everyone thinks I'm still your watch, but that isn't true. Which is another reason why I'm here. Aizen. To tell me your other name? Naruto. Haha, very funny. No, to tell you that I have no goal of trying to usurp the Soul King like the old Yawatch. I just want a new world that's full of peace, but I can't do that so long as I know there are people that have power that can go against that of my own. So, with that in mind, are you going to oppose me or will you just avoid conflict with me? Aizen. Well, to be honest, I have no true reason to be in conflict with you, especially since you don't carry the main ideals of the old Yawatch, however. Aizen would look at Naruto slyly and with a small, slick gleam in her one, uncovered eye, making the blonde sigh as he's seen that look too many times to count. Naruto. And here I thought you had no form of compassion or love in your heart. Aizen. I don't know what you're talking about, Quincy King. Naruto. If I release you, will I have to defend myself from your hunger? Aizen would only chuckle, making the blonde go on edge even more before approaching the sealed woman and placing a hand on her chair and placing a small tag on it before making a single hand seal. Naruto. Flying Raijin. In a yellow flash, Naruto and Aizen would disappear from Mukin and reappear in Naruto's royal chambers, surprising the former Shinigami captain as she's never seen something like that before. Naruto. Alright, now, the chair. Naruto would release his Ryotsu and shoot out a holy arrow, which makes contact with Aizen's chair and destroys it immediately, freeing the woman easily. Aizen. Ah, finally, some movement. Thank you, King Naruto. Naruto. Yeah, no pro. Aizen would appear in front of Naruto and kiss him on the lips for a few seconds before backing up, taking the Quincy King off guard and making him sigh. Naruto. How many wives and children am I gonna have? A few hours before the invasion of Soul Society, Naruto had just returned from getting his trade deals done with his allied villages and was preparing for the inevitable war with the Soul Reapers in Soul Society. However, as Naruto was getting ready, his chamber door would open up and his wives would walk in, worry and distress clear on their faces as they stared at Naruto. Bambietta. And Naruto. Naruto would stop what he was doing and turn around to face his wives, his serious expression softening almost instantly as he saw the worry on his wives' faces. Naruto. What is it? Candace. I think you need to calm down and try to go in with a level head. I know that sounds ironic coming from me, but we're already too strong for any of the Shinigami down in Soul Society to do anything, so don't do anything rash that could cause you to trip up and lose. We're only doing this because you reacted harshly when Squad Zero arrived and the all-naming monk used the right hand of Ryo to seal away the Almighty, so you need to calm down a bit. Naruto would look down in shame as Candace was right about his current mindset and feelings towards the Soul Reapers. However, all of Naruto's wives would walk up and do a massive group hug, comforting the blonde Quincy King. Naruto. Thank you, all of you. Had I not have lovers like you all, I'd be heading in the same direction as my past self. Referring to you watch here. Giselle. Don't worry, Naru-sama. We'll always be here for you. Let's get your almighty back. Naruto. Alright, scene change. Soul Society. Currently, all of the captains were in a meeting finalizing their plan to stop the Quincy's until the sound of a large explosion would ring out in the middle of the Seirei and the sound of screaming could be heard. Yamamoto. Everyone, you're all dismissed. Go and stop them now. Captains. Yes, sir. All of the captains would leave the meeting room while Yamamoto would go back towards Squad 1 barracks, only to see his barracks was completely destroyed and Sasuke was being held up by the neck by Naruto before being tossed to the side. Naruto. So, we finally meet, Yamamoto. After 1,000 years, this is what things have come to. Suddenly, powerful, scorching flames would explode from the old Captain Commander as he looked at Naruto with eyes of pure rage and hatred. Yamamoto. I should have made sure you were dead back then. But, it seems I had to finish what I started on someone as young as you. Naruto. So, you're aware that I'm not the same man you fought 1,000 years ago? Yamamoto. Correct. However, the minute you invaded Soul Society was the minute you became the top priority of trouble. So, with that being said, Naruto would observe Yamamoto for a good minute and see that he had got his arm back, slightly surprising him. Naruto. I guess some people actually do change, or did your fear of my existence scare you so bad you had to get your arm back? Yamamoto would narrow his eyes before uttering the words. Yamamoto. Ban, Kai. Yamamoto. Zenka no Tachi. Naruto could feel the immense heat from the old blade and knew that it was something that no one should ever underestimate. Yamamoto. Allow me to show you why I was able to kill you in your past life, you watch. Yamamoto would blitz in front of Naruto and attempt to slash his head off, but would be stopped as Naruto would activate Blood Vene and catch Yama's Zanpakuto with one hand, at the cost of his hand being charred slightly. Naruto. Seems like that blade of yours has dulled a splash. Naruto's arm would explode off his body and Yama would grin evilly before kicking Naruto in the gut, sending the young Quincy king flying through the rubble. Then, Yamamoto would stab his sword into the ground and would start to chant something. Yamamoto. Ashes of the dead, rise from the grave and give me a hand in battle. In return, I'll allow you to fight to your heart's content. Zanka no Tachi, Minami. Kaka Jumanokushi Daisojin. Naruto would get up from the rubble and regenerate his arm before looking around to see he was completely surrounded by skeletons, making the blonde smirk as the shadows under him would merge together and two figures would step out, shocking Yamamoto as two figures that were recently killed for the purpose of trying to win this war were brought back from the grave and were helping Naruto. Hana. What do you need, Your Majesty? Yukitaki. We'll be sure to serve you to the best of our abilities. Yamamoto. What did you? Naruto. I know all of your plans, Yamamoto. I had recently discovered that Yukitaki gave his life to the fat monk so a seal could be made for my almighty, while Hana was killed in battle against Zaraki so he could stop holding back and truly inherit the title as Kenpachi. So, when you were all distracted, I had one of my spies grab their bodies and I brought them back under my control. Yamamoto's anger would ascend to new heights at this revelation and he would attempt to rush towards Naruto in an attempt to slice him down instantly, but would be interrupted by Hana blocking his attack and kicking him away. Hana. Ban, Kai. Hana. Minazuki. Yukitaki. All ye waves, become my shield. All ye thunder, become my blade. Sogyo no Katowari. Yamamoto would be pushed back by the two captains but wouldn't back down or hold back against them. However, Naruto would say and do something that shook him to his very core and get him killed. Naruto. One last thing, Yamamoto. At what point in our battle did you think you were actually facing? Shatter. Aizen. His Majesty, you old fool. A.N. Imagine that, but female Aizen. Yamamoto. Aizen? Aizen would lift up a medallion and steal Yamamoto's Bankai, surprising the Captain Commander. Yamamoto. What did you? When did you? Aizen. Your questions are nothing but ones of a dead man. Kill him. Aizen would turn away as Yamamoto would be stabbed in the back and in the front by Yukitaki and Hana before being cut in half by the two. Then, Aizen would use the flames of Zanka no Tachi to completely erase Yamamoto's body, leaving nothing behind before walking off. Scene change. Captain of the 6th Division and head of the Kuchiki clan, Byakuya, was being completely brutalized by his node, who had just taken his Bankai and was using it to mutilate Byakuya in several different ways while using his shrift to tear down the noble captain's will. As note. What's the matter, Byakuya? Don't tell me you're afraid. Byakuya would attempt to use a Kido spell but would be cut off as an explosion would go off next to him and send him through several walls, causing his note to look up in the sky and see Bambietta flying up in the sky. Bambietta. Sorry if I stole your kill, but His Majesty is wanting us to push forward, so get moving. As Note would nod before leaping into the deeper parts of the Seireitei. Scene change. Gremmy was looking down on an army of low-level Shinigami and he would summon a large arsenal of guns and missiles and completely decimate the Shinigami, leaving a large pool of blood and body parts. Suddenly, boom, Gremmy. Well, seems like the real show is about to begin, Zaraki Kenpachi. Standing before the visionary was one of the 5 special war powers and most powerful Gotei 13 captains of today. Kenpachi Zaraki. Zaraki. From how much power you're radiating, you must be one of the strong Quincy's, right? Gremmy. You'd be correct. In fact, I'm one of His Majesty's royal guards and I have the ability to make anything I imagine become reality, so I hope you have a lot of fun. Zaraki would flash Gremmy a large grin and dash towards him before swinging his Shikai towards the young blonde, only for his attack to phase right through Gremmy and be violently blasted in the stomach and sent flying across the Seireitei. Gremmy. Rasen Shuriken. An enormous explosion would erupt from the jutsu Gremmy threw at Zaraki, however, to his surprise. A large pillar of Ryotsu would erupt where Zaraki was and Gremmy would barely dodge a red blur that blitzed past him and attempted to behead him. Gremmy. Well, seems like you're getting serious now, aren't you Zaraki? Zaraki. Raagghhhh. Gremmy. Come at me. Gremmy. Kenpachi Zaraki. Scene change. Naruto was sitting on his throne and was absorbing pieces of his bestowed soul from the world until he felt the presence of Jugram behind him. Naruto. Hashwalth, report. Jugram. Your Majesty, majority of the Gotei 13 have been decimated and the Bankai of their captain commander has been collected for you. Jugram would walk up and hand Naruto the medallion containing Yamamoto's Bankai before kneeling down in front of him. Naruto. Perfect. I'll be sure to reward Aizen when I get the chance to. Anyways, is the portal ready? Jugram. Yes, it is, Your Majesty. Naruto. Good. Prepare for takeoff. Jugram would nod and stand up before he and Naruto would walk up to the top of the tower they were in and Naruto's eyes would shift into the Sharingan and he would use Kamui to open up a rift in space-time towards the Soul King's royal palace. Naruto. Hashwalth. Jugram. Yes, Your Majesty? Naruto. I'll take care of this alone. Stay here and make sure no one goes up to the royal palace, understand? Jugram would be shocked slightly before nodding his head. Jugram. You have my word, Your Majesty. Naruto would smile and nod towards his fellow blonde before walking through the portal and appearing on the outskirts of the royal palace. Naruto. So this is the prison of the Soul King? How sad, I'll be sure he no longer suffers in the state he's in now after today. Crash. Naruto would look in front of him and see 5 figures standing in front of him, all of them wielding their Zanpakutos and different expressions were on their faces, but they all had one goal in mind. Squad 0. This is where you stop, you watch. Naruto would grin madly and activate his Rinnegan, which would evolve into the Rinne Sharingan after using the evolution abilities of Pernida, and he would summon his sword and point his medallion at the strongest Shinigami squad. Immeasurable amounts of spiritual pressure radiating off the young Quincy King as he stared down his last threat. Naruto. Let's dance, Squad 0. Squad 0's leader, Ichibe Hayasubi, would make a seal for the royal palace and watch as the rest of Squad 0 faced off against Naruto. Ichibe. 15 minutes, that should be enough time. Down below, Naruto was encased in a giant wooden cage and was engaged in a sword clash with Etsu, who was grinning ominously at the Uzumaki cane. Etsu. I hope you know that you won't get past us, Yttrium Hydride, WH. Naruto. And what makes you so sure? Hikafuna. Simple. Suddenly, a branch would wrap around Naruto's arm and pull it down, locking him in place, and Tenjiro would activate his Shikai, blinding Naruto, and Etsu would cut open Naruto's neck before impaling his sword in his chest. Etsu. Stay down, Yttrium Hydride. Etsu would barely dodge nerves exploding from Naruto's body and wrapping around him in a cocoon-like fashion and instantly healing him to full power. Tenjiro. TCH. How annoying. Naruto. All of you Soul Reapers don't get the memo. You can't win, so why bother fighting? Senjumaru. Because Naruto would be entangled with thin fibers of string before having his head sliced off by Nimaya and his body washed off the surface by Tenjiro. Squad 0. We have a duty to serve and we won't let you destroy everything we've built. Boom. Suddenly, Hikafuna's cage of life would be destroyed and Naruto would be floating in the air, reattaching his head, and would look towards the Squad 0 members with a bored look as his Rinne Sharingan began to glow ominously. Naruto. All of you are annoying me. I have something to do and someone to get rid of, so stay out of my way. A giant portal would open up behind Naruto and the Squad 0 members would see a red moon with the Rinne Sharingan reflected off of it, causing them to stand in place as Rinnegan were casted in their eyes. Tenryo. What the? Why can't? Etsu. I move? Wait. What is this? Hikafuna. What am I seeing? It's like my deepest dreams are being manifested. Senjumaru. Damn it. I don't want to leave. Tree branches would come out of the portal and wrap around the ancient Soul Reapers and pull them into the portal as it closes behind them, trapping them in the separate dimension. Naruto. Normally the infinite Tsukuyomi doesn't affect those of spiritual essence since they're technically dead, but of course, I've tweaked and enhanced the jutsu so it could only affect those who don't possess a Rinnegan like myself. Now, with those weaklings out of my way, Naruto would Kamui himself in front of Ichibe and stare him down with an angry glare. Naruto. I hope yo fat ass is ready to die, cause I'm tired of your devious schemes, Ichibe Hayasubi. Ichibe. Don't speak my name so lightly. Naruto would snarl angrily and raise his blade towards Ichibe and was about to rush towards the monk until he stopped in his tracks as he felt an abnormal amount of spiritual pressure coming from behind Ichibe, who grinned evilly as the sound of soft, firm footsteps echoed from the chamber of the Soul Cane. Naruto. What did you do? Ichibe's grin would get bigger as he stood up and stepped to the side, making Naruto's eyes widen at the person he was staring at. What's all this commotion? Ichigo. Ichibe, is my father here? Ichibe. Yes he is, young Kurosaki. Naruto. Da hell, Kurosaki Ichigo? Ichigo. Hello there, you watch. Or, do you prefer Uzumaki Naruto? I want to know which one to write on your gravestone. Ichigo would place his hand on Ichibe and the elder Shinigami would be covered in a dark substance before being absorbed into Ichigo's body, making his spiritual pressure grow to new heights as the Almighty glowed brightly in his eyes. Naruto. What happened to the... No. Ichigo. Yes. Ichibe decided to give me the power and essence of the Soul King himself, or, at least what was left of him. Regardless, it was enough to give me the Almighty, but I need to take your power to become whole. So why don't you do me a favor? Suddenly, Ichigo would appear in front of Naruto in the blink of an eye and shove his fist into his stomach. Ichigo. And just lay down and die for me. Naruto would grin and Kamui through Ichigo and appear behind him before using the compulsory to tear off Ichigo's arm. However, the young teenager simply regenerated and continued pressing Naruto. Ichigo. I may not be able to perceive you with the Almighty because of the absorbed Soul King's parts within your spirit, but do not think you can win this battle without your own Almighty. Naruto. He's not wrong. I can't use something too many times, otherwise, he'll eventually catch on and completely nullify them with his Almighty. Luckily, he's inexperienced with the Almighty and doesn't truly know how to use it to its fullest capabilities. I have to make this quick. Naruto would appear in front of Ichigo and the two would clash blades with one another, making their Ryotsu be felt throughout all three worlds. However, Ichigo would be pushed back and Naruto would shoot an arrow into his gut, which extended his nerves throughout his body and crushed the teen into a small, compact ball. Naruto. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A pillar of black spiritual pressure would emerge from where Ichigo was and he would be standing there, completely healed and unharmed. Naruto. 6 seconds. It takes him 6 seconds to not only revive himself with the Almighty, but to also adapt to whatever was used against him. Ichigo. Paint it black, Ichimonji. Ichigo. Drown in the perpetual hell I call darkness. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto felt all of his power disappear in an instant and he felt his heart drop as images of his life flashed before his eyes. Ichigo. I hope you enjoy being a part of a higher being. Ichigo would walk up to Naruto and place his hand on his chest, giving the nameless blonde an evil smile before grabbing him by the neck and snapping it with one hand before completely absorbing him. Down in the Seireitei, the majority of the Soul Reapers were either dead or unconscious and the entirety of the Seireitei. However, all of the Quincy's felt their king's spiritual power drop instantly and their hearts stopped for a few seconds as worry and despair started to creep into their spirit. As note, Your Majesty. Askin. No, it can't be possible. Baz B. Naruto, you better not be dead. Jugram. Your Majesty. Please, for all of us. Bambietta, Candace, Shiroku, Giselle, Amaya, and Aizen. Naruto, Your Majesty. Don't die please. Back at the royal palace, Ichigo would keel over on his knees as something was happening to him. Within his body, Naruto's power started to take over and Ichigo would look up to the sky and scream loudly as shadows creeped up his body and covered him in a dark cocoon. Inside Ichigo's inner world, Naruto would be standing in front of the vestige of his previous self, old man Zangetsu, and the two would be looking at each other in shallow silence. Zangetsu. So, this is who I am now. Naruto. Yeah, disappointed? Zangetsu. No. In fact, I feel grateful knowing I've changed in different ways. But, I have one final request I'd like you to carry out for me, Naruto. Naruto. What is it? Zangetsu. I need you to kill Ichigo. Naruto. What? Why? Zangetsu. The boy I came to as my son has been corrupted by the Soul King's hatred and if he isn't stopped here, he will collapse all three worlds and attempt to achieve what my original goal was. After that, there's no telling what'll happen next. Naruto. Alright, you have my word. Suddenly, Ichigo would land a few feet away from Naruto and Zangetsu and was glaring at the blonde with unwavering amounts of hatred before glancing over at Zangetsu with worry. Ichigo. Old man, I need your help. Please, lend me your strength so I can beat him. Zangetsu. I'm sorry, Ichigo. Ichigo. What? Zangetsu would place a hand on Naruto's shoulder and look at Ichigo with a disappointed look. Zangetsu. You're no longer the young boy I used to care for. You're nothing but a fake, a vessel for a being full of hatred and resentment. Zangetsu would walk away and disappear into the shadows as Ichigo began to cry tears of black blood and fell to his knees in anger and despair. Ichigo. You fucking traitor, I kill you, this is all your fault, I'm going to make sure you suffer. Uzumaki Naruto. Ichigo would be engulfed by an aura of a thick, black energy covered in eyes and his voice would become distorted as his inner world began to crack before shattering completely as Naruto was pushed out of his body with his powers and abilities returned to him at their peak. Naruto. What the? Soul King. Hello, my son. Did you miss your father? Naruto would get to his feet and realize that Pernida, Gerard, and Mimihagi's powers were taken from him. However, in return, Naruto. I got my almighty back. Let's go, Soul King. You know that those eyes aren't just inferior to mine, but have no use on me, right? Naruto. Yeah, but I don't need those eyes to beat you. Soul King. How foolish of you, my son. Has your delusionality truly reached its heights? Naruto. No, not at all. Ryo would create a sword and appear in front of Naruto and attempt to slice him down in one fell swoop, only for his sword to be blocked by Naruto's own. Naruto. Time I show you why I deserve to be king, father. Naruto would flip back and activate his Rinne Sharingan and transport himself and Ryo to a different dimension. Ryo. What is this place? Do you really think that? The Soul King would fall to one knee as he slowly felt his spiritual pressure getting weaker, causing him to look up at a grinning Naruto. Naruto. Welcome to the Black Star Dimension. I specifically made it to counter spiritual beings like us, Soul Reapers, and Hollows. Here, your Ryotsu will constantly decrease and all of your abilities will be halved. I specifically made this place for you since, if you couldn't tell, the Almighty cannot be used here. Ryo's eyes would widen as he tried to activate the Almighty but failed to do so, making him snarl as he got up to his feet. Ryo. Aren't you also weakening yourself, Naruto? Naruto. I am. However, I'm weakening my Quincy abilities, not my shinobi powers. Susanoo. Chakra would explode from Naruto's body and shape itself into a giant ethereal samurai being. Naruto. Kamui Shuriken. Ryo would dodge a few of the giant projectiles, but would get hit by one of them on his left arm, sending it into Kamui dimension. Ryo. Do not think you've won just because I'm down an arm, Uzumaki. Naruto. Shut your trap, false cane. Koto Amatsukami. Naruto would cast a powerful genjutsu on Ryo and force him to stop in place and tear out his heart as Naruto Kamui'd his other arm off. Ryo. No. This can't be happening, I can't lose, I can't. Naruto would walk up to the mutilated Soul King and rip out his eyes and absorb them, increasing the power of his almighty, before placing his sword on his neck. Naruto. I've come to realize that you deserved being strung up in that room with no consciousness or self of being. The amount of hatred in your heart can lead to nothing but eternal devastation and suffering, just like the primordial world that existed billions of years ago. Rest now, Soul King. No one shall ever rest pity on your corrupted soul. Naruto would swipe Ryo's head off and completely destroy his corpse before leaving his dimension to feel the three worlds beginning to crumble in on themselves, causing Naruto to absorb the limbs and/or organs of the Soul King in his Kamui dimension and activate his almighty to stabilize everything. Naruto. Phew, that was close. As much as he was a necessity to keep everything stable, his very essence will corrupt anyone if they intake any of his being outside of myself, since Yhwach was his offspring. A giant portal would open up and all of the stern ridders would rush through it and see a smirking Naruto, making them cheer loudly in victory. All of Naruto's wives would rush up to him and hug him tightly as they all reprimanded him for nearly dying, but Naruto said that he'd promised to make it up to them once everything was settled. However, Naruto knew that if the three worlds needed to stay stabilized, a new linchpin was required and he didn't want to stay here for the rest of his life. Gremmy. Your Majesty, may I help with keeping the three worlds balanced? Naruto. Are you sure you want to do this, Gremmy? You'll be stuck here for the rest of your life if you agree to this. Gremmy would simply smile as he pointed at his head and grinned. Gremmy. Your Majesty, I can imagine whatever I want into reality, I'll be fine. Naruto would smile softly and nod his head towards Gremmy, whose body would start to glow slightly as his brain would explode out of the top of his head. Lil Toto would run up to Gremmy and hug his fading body tightly as tears streamed down her face. Gremmy. I know. Don't worry, you can always talk to me whenever you're stressed out. Plus, I made sure to give you a perfect gift in case I ever face death itself. Lil Toto would look down and see a noticeable lump on her stomach, making her smile as she shared one last kiss with Gremmy. Lil Toto. Thank you, Gremmy. I'll never forget you and I'll be sure our child always remembers who you are. Gremmy would smile happily as his body fades away completely, leaving his brain behind in a case. Naruto would walk over and pick up the brain case and imbue it with a major portion of the power he took from the Soul King before placing the case on a podium in the room of the Soul King. Naruto. You've served me well, Gremmy Thumiix. I'll be sure your lover and child have the most peace within this new era. Stay strong for me. Naruto would seal up the room and teleport everyone back to the land of whirlpools, and he would have a large festival for the defeat of the Soul King and the Shinigami. Time skip. 5 years later. Dad, Naruto. Yes, Boruto? Boruto. Tell Hime that I'm gonna be the one next in line to rule over the Wandenreich. I was born earlier than her. Himawari. That doesn't matter. I'm stronger than you and we've had enough kings as leaders. It's about time a queen stepped up and ruled over the Quincy's for once. Naruto would chuckle and get off of his throne and place his hand on the twins' heads, making them both pout cutely. Naruto. In due time, we'll see who'll get to rule an army like mine. After all, I am starting to get old, ya know? Suddenly, the door would slam open and Bambietta, Candace, and Hinata would step into the room and hug Naruto and the two Uzumaki twins. Naruto. Hey you three. Something wrong? Bambietta. No, we're just here to tell you that another meeting is starting in about 30 minutes from now. Candace. So get ready and leave. Himawari. Hey, Auntie Candace, be nice to Papa. Candace would chuckle and ruffle Himawari's hair. Candace. I'm just joking around, little Hima. No need to get so worked up. Himawari. You better be. Otherwise. Himawari. I'll be sure to remind you that Papa isn't the only person who can make your knees weak. Candace would sweat slightly at Himawari's cute, but serious warning, making her glare at Hinata, who simply grinned innocently as she hugged Himawari lovingly. Candace. What does she teach that little girl? Boruto. Hey dad, what will we do about this Ashiki guy in my karma seal? Naruto. Meh, we can get rid of him or we can make him submit. Either way, he'll never be a problem for anyone in the family. Boruto would activate his Kama seal and a horn would grow from his head before disappearing as he walked out of the room with his hands in his pockets. Naruto. Man. Life has gotten better for me ever since Yawatch reincarnated into me. If I had a chance, I'd thank him. But I should get ready for this meeting and prepare for more baby making. I just know the rest of them want a child like Hinata and Bambietta. Naruto would chuckle and walk out of the throne room, closing the doors behind him as he headed off to the Land of Iron for another Cage Summit. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.